Today I am super blessed to be interviewing the incredible Rhiannon Wilde. Rhiannon has her debut novel coming out in July this year. It is called Hamlet's Heart, and it is beautiful. It won the State Library of Queensland Glendale Award for Emerging Queensland Writers in 2019. And I was lucky enough to be able to receive a copy before its release date thanks to Rebel Books. I read it and I love it so much. It is sweet, heartfelt, awkward, and now one of my all-time favourite LGBTQIA+ romance novels. It was super relatable in some parts. It even had me smiling, crying, laughing, cheering, and realising how single I am. I believe Rhiannon is an inspirational author because of her book Hamlet's Heart, which features a fabulous cast of diverse and relatable characters. Plus, it has lots of wholesome LGBTQIA+ community representation, and we need more of this in our literature. Rhiannon, thank you so much for letting me grill you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Completely unrelated to your work, you used to be a high school teacher. What was the most awkward or funniest moment from your experience there?
There's so many when I was thinking about what to say. I think the funniest moment was probably in my first year of teaching. I had a grade 10 class and I was only like 22 when I started out, and I bought all these business clothes to try and be really, be the teacher. And I had these textured like Target business pants. And one day when I was teaching a poetry lesson, there was a piece of like Velcro on the whiteboard and my textured business pants got stuck to the whiteboard like halfway through my lesson. And the girls were like, are you okay? And I was like, look, I'm stuck to the whiteboard, but it's okay. And I just had to kind of like peel myself off. That was probably one of the funniest moments like that I can remember. It's not hard though for my students to make me laugh. Like they pretty much made me laugh with their stuff every day. Like the last year 12 class I had this little mascot that was a rat called Rathu. And I don't know why Rathu always made me crack up, but he was very funny too. So those are probably my top two. Getting stuck to the whiteboard and Rathu.
Those are brilliant and very, very hilarious. They sound
It was very hard to get off the whiteboard, so I had to draw attention to it.
I imagine it would be hard. Velcro was very, very strong and sticky.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was grippy, and I never wore those pants again.
Now onto Hamlet's Heart. Can I start by saying I love it? Plus, I'm a total nerd who loves alliterations too, so you had me at the title. Where did you get the inspiration for this gorgeous novel?
Thank you so much. You're so lovely about it. I love alliteration as well, and it's funny, the title wasn't Hamlet's Heart. For the whole first draft, it wasn't called that. It was just called Crush, because I was like, I don't know, it's about a crush. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, but Hamlet's Heart came later. But in terms of the inspo for the book, like the story, there's a few places. So the first thing that came to me was Henry as a character. Henry, actually went on an excursion to a cemetery with my history class, and they had to look at Victorian graves, like from the Victorian era, and figure out what we could tell from their lives from the graves. And basically they had to figure out that people died a lot more often and a lot earlier, and because life was very different. But one of the graves was a Henry Hamlet. And I was always like pretty skeptical of finding names in a graveyard. I was always kind of like, I feel like that's a made up thing. That doesn't happen to authors. But as soon as I saw that name, I was like, that's a cool name. And my husband said, you should write that down. That is a cool name. And then pretty much the next day, Henry was just there, like in my life, and like fully formed, this like brown haired, awkward glasses wearing boy, like staring at me like, you should write about me, because I'm the idea that you've been waiting for, don't you get it? Like, so yeah, Henry came first in terms of inspiration. And pretty much he followed me to work every day since like the moment that he showed up. I would be able to like see him sitting in the car next to me, kind of like telling me all these things that could happen in his story. And then I'd always wanted to write a queer story about best friends where it wasn't just kind of unrequited love, because I think I'd read a lot of those stories when I was a teenager looking for queer books to kind of see myself represented in fiction, and then but I'd never seen one where anything happened. So where it was actually like not unrequited, and I don't want to spoil it, but like where it wasn't just, you know, I'm queer and I'm in love with my best friend, but they're straight and that's it kind of thing. I wanted there to be, I'd never really seen that story. And one of my favorite bands ever is called Cup Sport, and they're a Brisbane band. And they're both, the lead singer and the keyboardist are both gay, and they fell in love and got married, and they were best friends growing up. And so their album had just come out, and I was listening to it, their most recent album at the time, it was 2018. I was listening to it, and then I was kind of like, this best friends thing, this best friends falling in love thing is a story that I want to tell. And Henry is the character for it. And Henry felt right to put with that, I guess. And then I had to crack Len. Len was harder to crack. I was like, who are you? And I could see him, but he wasn't a character that was as forthcoming as Henry. So I guess the inspiration was Henry as a character, and then this story of a queer romance with best friends was something I really wanted to do.
I absolutely love that. That's so sweet. I have to thank the cemetery trip now. I have to go to a cemetery now because this is absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Thank you, the real Henry Hamlet. I'm sorry that you died, but thank you for thank you for your name.
Yeah. Thank you. Because now we have this beautiful book.
Yeah, we do. It's funny how things come from the weirdest places. Inspiration, I think.
Besides Len and Henry, my favourite character is Gran. She is blunt, sassy, and a truly amazing human being. Where did you get the inspiration for her?
First of all, I love that you love Gran, because she's a character that when people were reading the first draft, they either really loved her or they'd never met anyone like her, and they were like, oh, Gran's intense. Like, whereas I love her. Like, she's probably, like, I'm the same as you. Like, she's top tier. The inspiration for her, I think, I remember writing that first scene that she's in, where the family are having brunch I think it's in the first chapter, and she just kind of came in, and I sort of thought, what do I think I'll look like as a 60-something-year-old woman? Gran is a little bit of that. Like, I was sort of like, I feel as though I would be bold and brassy still. I'd probably be with a woman and I wouldn't care who, knew about it. So Gran, first of all, I think I thought, what would I look like as an older woman? And secondly, all the women in my family are a little bit like that. Like, I think she reminds me a lot of my own Nan, who passed away when I was 20. She was very sassy, very blunt, very just like a powerful force. And I'm always interested in people who find Gran, I don't know, I think people find her confronting, not necessarily in a bad way, but I always think, what are the women in your family like if you think that's really, if you think Gran's really, I don't know, like out there. To me, that's just kind of what the women in my family are like. And I wanted there to be some strong women around Henry as well as strong male characters. I wanted there to be a balance of characters. And she's kind of, I guess, a bit of a queer role model in a way, because she's just so like, this is me, this is how I am. And I love that about her. So yeah, I think bit of me, bit of the women in my family.
Well, she's definitely future me goals for when I'm like an old lady. She's definitely goals for that. And she's definitely an amazing role model. She's just, she's queer, she's open, she's just the most wholesomely queer old lady I have seen in a lot of queer romance novels. Like, she's amazing. Yeah, I absolutely loved her. She's just amazing. Like,
she kind of happened by accident, and I'm really surprised by how strong she is as a character. Like, yeah, I love her as well.
Sometimes the accidental characters come out the best because they're just like, they accidentally go into a story, they just turn out like one of the best developed characters. And it's just...
Yeah, because I guess you're not trying to construct anything really deliberately. It's just like this person has come into the story fully formed. Yeah, I feel like Gran's a bit like that.
Which character do you relate to the most out of all the characters in your book?
It's so hard. I think in terms of, I'll answer it, I'll be annoying and do two. Because there's a character that I think I see myself in the most, and then there's a character that I relate to the most in terms of how relatable they are on a universal scale. So I think, like, relatable, I think is the obvious one. I think it's Henry. Like, he is very relatable as a person, and he's so awkward, and he gets things wrong and says the wrong thing and obsesses over stuff. And I think he's very relatable for us all. Like, we've all been there, and I love that about him. Like, he has no idea what he's doing. Like, he's a bit of a disaster, but he's also, doing his best, I think. And that I definitely think socially I'm not as awkward as Henry on the outside, but I definitely have had those moments of like cringe. Like, I really relate to the cringe. And yeah, I think that's something I really wanted to do. I wanted to have a character that didn't have it all figured out, that didn't know what he was doing, so that people could see that and be like, yeah, that's okay. Like, I don't have to know what I'm doing. And the one that I see myself in the most is probably Amelia, because she's pretty closely, I think, modeled off my friendships that I have with my male friends. I think the way that her and Henry are friends really reminds me of the way that I'm friends with all my male friends. So I think Amelia reminds me of myself the most, but I relate to Henry a lot.
I definitely relate to Henry, and I definitely see a lot of myself in Henry because he's just, how awkward he is, I'm like just a slightly less awkward than that. Like, I'm very awkward. So yeah, I was reading Henry and I was just like, I relate to this character so much. And he was just a beautiful soul. Just a beautiful soul.
He is a beautiful soul. I'm so glad that you related to him. I think, like I said, like a lot of us can relate to that. And he's also he's a good person, even though he's not good at life.
Yeah.
That's kind of his brand.
Yeah. You may not be good in life, but at least you're a great person and you have a great personality.
Yeah, you're doing well.
If you could have dinner with any character from your books in real life, who would it be and why?
Probably Len, because he was the hardest character to crack. Like I said, I could see him. I was like, Henry's got this best friend. I can see him. He's got gold hair. He's tan. He's got greeny grey eyes, but I don't know what has happened to him in his life to make him the way he is yet. It took me a long time to scratch the surface of Len, and he has a lot of layers. And I think I'd love to just grill him about like how he feels about certain things, and get to see him in person. I think would be really cool, because he's kind of my most mysterious character, I think. So it would be fun to unwrap him in real life.
He was definitely a very mysterious character. I thought it was very good that he was mysterious. Like, it really helped develop the story. It was beautiful. I loved Len a lot. Love
Yep.
Henry. Love Henry. It's just so perfect.
They're good. I think they're a good contrast to each other.
Yeah. Definitely.
It makes sense that they would be friends, but also it makes sense what else happens.
I love the diverse cast, and without giving too much away about the ending, I love how supportive all the friends and family were. Why did you choose to have such a wholesome queer representation in your book?
I think it was very much something we deliberately did throughout all the edits, was to keep, I think something that's really necessary is positive queer representation particularly in YA, because that's when you're figuring everything out usually. And when I was growing up, there wasn't a huge amount of queer representation, and there was barely any bi representation at all. I don't think I saw any, apart from like a weird subplot on the OC where one of the characters had a romance with a girl and then kind of went back to her boyfriend and they never spoke about it again. So I think broad representation was something that I wanted, that I was really passionate about, because I wanted people who identify in different ways to be able to see themselves in my characters. And I think something that's really powerful, or was to me when I was figuring out my own queer identity, is just seeing people live it. Seeing other people doing it was the most valuable thing to me. And I think I love every time someone tells me that Gran being bi or Len being pan or bi helped them, or Henry's queerness and Henry's gay panic helped them in any way. I nearly cry, because that's really what I wanted. I wanted something that had a lot of positivity while still being true to the struggles that queer people go through. And the friends being so, like the friends and family, I think I really enjoyed doing, particularly Henry's dad. I love Henry's dad a lot as a character, and the scene that is my favorite scene with him and Henry and the conversation that they have nearly got cut from the draft. Like we couldn't fit it in, and then I said no, it has to come back, because acceptance and positive representation is such a strong message, and we need that, I think, as the overarching message. I'm chuffed that it comes through for the reader, because it was something we so wanted to make sure was the focus.
Well, as a fellow queer person myself, I've definitely found it very positive and honestly relatable in the struggles, like that whole "do they like me" and all that type of stuff, and it felt so awkward but true. Like I was like, yes, I've been there. That's so honest. And I was like, it was perfect, and it was so positive, and we definitely need that, because we need positive queer representation, so everyone, no matter what they identify as, can feel represented.
Yeah, and valid and
yes,
and seen, like you say. And yeah, I do love the awkwardness of like, do they like me? And even crushing on your friends, I feel like, is such a universal queer experience. Like, not that I've been there several times. And I wanted to do, it's not wish fulfillment, but it is in a little bit. Like, I wanted that to be like, what happens if they like you back? What then? You know? Maybe they do, and sometimes, you know, that's what happens. So I'm glad that it does come across as the positive message that we wanted it to be.
Your manuscript won the State Library of Queensland Glendale Award for Emerging Queensland Writers in 2019. How are you feeling about that?
It was very unexpected. So I think when I wrote Henry in 2018, over about 3 months, and then I sort of put it aside. I was teaching, and then I started submitting it to some agents and sort of struggling through that journey. And then on a whim, I entered it into the Glendale Award, which is through the Queensland Literary Awards for an unpublished author, and you get a publishing contract if you win. And then they called me a couple of months later while I was at work, while I was teaching my year sevens, and they were like, well, they were at recess. It was fine. It wasn't during mid class. But they called me and they said, you've been shortlisted. And I was like, okay. And then I looked at the other manuscripts that had been shortlisted and I was like, oh, these are all like beautiful literary, highbrow adult novels. There's no way that my little gay YA is going to win. And then they rang, and then about a month later, they messaged to say that it had won. And I was again, like at school, and I was teaching, and my year sevens like all cheered. and then I went to the Queensland Literary Awards and did my little speech, nearly fainted from having to be in front of all those people. And then, I think it still feels a bit surreal that it's even going to be published at all. I think I love it so much, and I'm so proud that it won it, but I still can't believe it.
Well, congratulations for it. I'm so glad it won, and it's definitely a very well-deserved win. It is absolutely beautiful, and if I haven't said this, it's wholesome, and it's just amazing, and definitely deserves to win it.
Thank you. Thank you.
When you were a super rich and famous author, what's something frivolous you'd love to splurge money on?
Ooh, I think maybe like a whole wall of bookshelves with like full-on ladders that I can climb and like slide across, and like a library, like a home, one of those really gorgeous home libraries that you see, and like, because I've got a lot of books in storage, a lot of books at my parents' place. Like I own hundreds and hundreds, and I can't display them all together, and I'd love to be able to like have all of them, even my old Lemony Snickets from when I was 10.
I feel like a home personal library is like a massive dream, and I think I'd probably do the same.
Yeah.
With like
good.
sliding ladders,
Yeah,
little desks, little lanterns, little lamps.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Then you know you've made it when you've got slidey ladders.
Do you have big plans for the release date of Henry Hamlet's Heart? How will you be celebrating?
Kind of. We've got a launch happening at Avid Reader in Brisbane on the 2nd of July, the day it comes out. But I don't know, I'm not really like a party person. So I think it will be interesting. I don't think I'm going to do too big of a speech on the night. It'll just be for kind of everyone to gather together and get a finished copy of the book, and probably I'll just have dinner with like my editor and my partner and my family, and just think, wow, we did that. It's over and it's out. And yeah, I think quiet is probably how I celebrate.
I probably did the same, because when I had my book, because I'm not a party person either, I can't do parties.
Yeah. I think quiet's better.
Yeah, book launch, lovely quiet dinner sounds amazing. Now we are into the speed round. These are 10-second answers. It's a race, no explanations at all.
Okay.
It is a bell to let you know if you've got over time.
Oh, terrifying. Okay. Because I'm a rambler. I think most writers are ramblers, so it must be hard to keep us honest.
What are you writing at the moment?
My second book, which is about two sisters who live by the sea and some ghosts and a graveyard.
What is your favourite meal to eat for dinner?
Mashed potato. I could eat it not just for dinner, always.
Me too. What is your least favourite book genre to read, and why?
My least favourite is probably true crime, because I'm a softie. I can't handle it.
What was your worst subject in school?
Maths. I nearly failed in year 12. I had all A's and then maths was a C minus.
Who is your favourite or most inspirational author from your childhood?
Oh, this is so hard. From my childhood, I loved The Sister with the Travelling Pants. Anne Brashars wrote it, and I loved that. Like I devoured them.
Which book character from another author would you love to meet and why?
Probably like anyone from Cassandra Clare's books. I'm a bit of a tragic for the Shadowhunter series. I read them all still. Any of those characters, like Julian or Emma from the latest one. Yeah, either of them, I'd be happy.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever written about?
I wrote this really weird story when I was in year 6 at a writer's camp about this girl who like rose from the dead, and her name was Arabelle, which I don't think is a real name. So she kind of got resurrected from the grave. I didn't understand the science behind that at all.
Still, sounds cool.
Still, I mean, yeah, maybe.
If you could go anywhere in the world and write about that place, where would you go?
The UK. So I would go to London or Scotland, and I actually have a short story of Len in London, and I'd love to write about him there when he's like 21. Yeah, so the UK.
What's your favourite achievement so far?
Probably Henry getting published, because it's something I didn't think would ever happen. And I still struggle to view it as an achievement. I struggle to like recognize my achievements, but I think probably, yes, it is one if I stop back to think about it. So yeah, probably that Henry thing coming out and being published.
Well, it is definitely a massive and well-deserved achievement.
Thank you.
Do you have any advice to share with young writers?
Oh, this will be so hard to do in 10 seconds. Can I go over for this one? Look at me redefining the rules. Definitely keep going. Just keep going. Like there were so many times where I thought that it wasn't something I could pursue because it's such a dream and it's so something you want so badly that I was almost afraid to pursue it because I felt like I'd never get it. But I think just keep going. If an idea comes to you and it flows, it's probably a book. If an idea comes to you and it's a real struggle, it might not be. So you have your ideas that are a book and your ideas that are kind of like, maybe not. And I didn't know that when I was young. I would like slog it out with an idea that I didn't like because I wanted to write a book. And then Henry happened in 3 months. So keep going, go with the flow, learn as much as you can from life, because I think your own life, even if your characters are very different to you, it informs your craft in so many ways. And so I think tap into your own experiences, particularly if you're writing YA, because remember all those feelings of awkwardness and heartbreak and rejection, or like euphoria when your crush does like you back. Hold on to all those feelings and use them when your ideas come and flow. Yeah.
I love that advice. It is so amazing. Thank you so much for letting me grill you.
That is okay. Thank you for having me.
Make sure to check out Rhiannon Wilde on her socials. And when Henry Hamlet's Heart comes out, go buy it. It's amazing. You won't regret it.
Yeah, the real cover is really pretty. Like that's the proof cover, but the real one, oh, I can't.
I know. The other one on the back is so pretty.
It's so beautiful. We had a really great designer. So I'm really excited for people to be able to get the big picture of him.
So happy. It'll be good.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Alrighty.